What's up, everybody? Welcome to Jump Wave. Today, I'm going to walk you through a cover of Everything in Its Right Place by Radiohead on the Korg Volca Sample 2 using only the factory samples. First thing we're going to do is set our tempo, swing, and reverb. So our tempo for our song is going to be 124 beats per minute. Our swing is going to be 25. And our reverb mix is going to be at 60. After we've done that, let's clear our pattern by holding down Function and selecting Step 16 All. Now we're ready to set up our samples. On part 1, we're going to have sample 001, Kick Dusty. On part 2, we're going to have sample 102, Vintage Pad. And on parts 3, 4, 5, and 6, we're going to have sample 127 bass unison synth. Now that we have our sample set up, let's begin programming our pattern. We're going to start with our kick drum on part 1. So let's go to step mode. And we're going to put a kick on steps 1, 5, 9, and 13. Now let's also do a high cut around 60. And set the decay of the sample at 60 as well. In the original track, the kick drum gradually comes in as the song progresses, but I'm going to have it playing throughout just to use it as a metronome because counting beats is going to be really important in this song, and the kick drum is just going to make it easier to count, but we'll get into that in a minute. Moving over to part 2. Here is where we're going to start programming our chord progression. So part 2 is going to be our bass or root note of the chord. Now, you may be wondering how we're going to make this sample pad sound like a bass. Well, we are going to take advantage of the Volca Sample's loop function to create some sustained tones, which we can then shape into something that has a really nice synth bass sound. So to turn on the loop mode, we hold down Function and select Step 11, Loop On Off. Red light indicates that loop mode is now on. And if we play this part, we can hear how it begins to repeat. So the sample is looping, and when the sample gets to the end of its length, it will repeat. And we can adjust the length of the sample here. And by making the sample shorter, it will repeat faster. And if we make the sample really short, it will repeat fast enough to give us a sustained tone, kind of like an oscillator. And if we adjust the start point and length just right, we can set the pitch of this tone at a C note. So for this sample, if we set the start point at 2 and the length at 4, this will give us a C note. So we're going to set the decay at 90, and we're going to do a high cut at about 100. So let's start programming these notes. But how are we going to make this sample play different notes? Well, the cool thing about the Volca Sample is the ability to lock parameter changes in per step. So if we go to step mode and we put a note on step 1, for example, we can hold our finger down on the step. While holding down, we press and hold Function, take our finger off of the step. We see how it's blinking now. And we can turn this speed knob, and this will change the note value of that specific step. So these note values are chromatic, meaning each note value represents one note. For example, our sample is tuned to a C note, so C would be 0. That's going to be our starting point. One note value up would be C sharp, 2 would be D, 3 would be D sharp, 4 would be E, 5 would be F, so on and so forth. And that also goes into the negative. So -1 would be B, -2 would be B flat, 3 would be A, so on and so forth. It goes 24 note values up or down. So 2 octaves up, 2 octaves down. So we're going to put notes on steps 1, 7, 11, and 15. So we're going to press and hold down step 1. And while continuing to hold, press and hold down function, take our finger off of the step, and then turn the speed knob down to -24, which is going to give us a C. And we'll do the same thing for steps 7 and 11. We can hold down multiple steps at once. And turn that down to -24. And for our last step, we're going to press hold function. We're going to turn this to -23 D flat. So let's listen now. All right, cool. Sounds like a nice bass part. Let's move on now to part 3. So here we're going to do the same loop mode trick we did for part 2. So we'll turn on loop mode, hold down function, press step 11, and we'll set the sample length at 2 and the start point at 2 and the length at 4. Start at 2, length at 4. And we'll also have notes on steps 1, 7, 11, and 15 again. So on steps 1, 7, 11, we're going to have a C -12. And on step 15, we're going to have a D flat -11. And we're also going to do a high cut here of 100. And on this sample, we will set the decay at 90 also. So let's listen. Sounds good. Let's move over to part 4. And here we're going to do the same loop trick again. So function, loop mode on, start point at 2, and start point at 4. If you want to jump ahead, we're going to do it also for parts 5 and 6 as well. And same thing, we're going to have notes on steps 1, 7, 11, and 15. Remember, we're playing a chord, so we can think of parts 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 all as being notes of this chord. So here on steps 1, 7, and 11, we're going to have E -8. And on step 15, we're going to have -7 F. Once again, we'll set the high cut at 100 and the decay at 90. And let's listen. Oops, had an extra note there. That sounds good. Let's move over to part 5. Once again, same loop trick, loop mode on, start at 2, length at 4, notes on 1, 7, 11, and 15. So on steps 1, 7, and 11, we're going to have a G -5. And on step 15, we'll have -4 A flat. High cut at 100, decay at 90. Cool. Let's move over to part 6. Here we'll do our loop trick again. So function, loop on. We're going to set the start at 2, length at 4. And we'll put notes on 1, 7, 11, and 15 again. And here we're just going to leave them as C0. So we don't need to change the note values here at all. So we're good. So we're just going to set the high cut at 100 and the decay at 90. And let's listen now to our chord all together. Cool. Cool. So here we're playing the first of 3 parts to our first chord progression. So the chord progression for this section is C major, D flat major 7, and E flat 6. But this pattern is only playing the C and D flat major 7 chords right here. So we have C major, C major, C major, D flat major 7. So we'll save this onto pattern 1. And to do that, we save by holding down function, selecting memory, and selecting pattern 1. We'll also save it onto 2, 4, 7, 10, and 13. So save it onto 2, we'll save it onto 4, we'll save it onto 7, and we'll save it onto 13. And that will become clear here in a minute. But for now, let's load up pattern 2 again. So to do that, we go to memory and load, select pattern 2. And now that we have all of our samples set up, it's just a matter of changing note values. So we're going to start on part 2. And in this pattern, we have notes on steps 3, 7, 11, and 15. So we're going to take the note off of step 1 and put it on 3. And step 3 is going to be a negative 23 D flat. And steps 7, 11, and 15 are going to be negative 21 E flat. Moving over to part 3, same thing. We're going to have notes on steps 3, 7, 11, and 15. And step 3 is going to be D flat negative 11. And steps 7, 11, and 15 are going to be E flat negative 9. Now on to part 4. Again, notes on steps 3, 7, 11, and 15. Step 3 is going to be F negative 7. And steps 7, 11, and 15 will be negative 5 G. Moving over to part 5. Once again, notes on steps 3, 7, 11, and 15. Step 3 is going to be A flat negative 4. And steps 7, 11, and 15 will be negative 2 B flat. Moving over to part 6, we're only going to be playing a C note here, but we need it on steps 3, 7, 11, and 15. All right, so let's listen to the whole sequence together now. Cool. So this is the second part of our first chord progression. And here we are playing the D flat major 7 and E flat 6 chords. So it's a D flat major 7 and then E flat 6, E flat 6, E flat 6. So that sounds great. So we're going to save it onto memory 2, hold down function, save it onto 2. And we're also going to save it onto memory 3, 5, 8, and 11. And again, this will all make sense here in a second. But anyways, let's go back to memory 3 now. And this is going to be the last part of our chord progression. And it's going to be a little bit different than the first 2 parts. So for starters, we're not actually going to play a chord here. So we can mute parts 3, 4, 5, and 6. So this is essentially going to be the little riff fill that transitions back to the start of the chord progression. So we'll go over to part 2. And we're going to put notes on steps 1, 3, and 5. And we'll turn off the others. So steps 1 and 5 are going to be C negative 12. And step 3 is going to be B flat negative 14. And actually, we need to turn part 6 back on. So we'll turn part 6 back on, unmute part 6. Go over to part 6, and we're going to turn off these steps here and just turn on step 1. And we're going to open the decay here a little bit more to have a little bit more sustain on this note. All right, so this is the part where I might lose some people, but I'm going to try to explain it as simply as I can. So this song is in a weird time signature. Not only is it in a weird time signature, but different sections of this song even have different meters. If you want to get super technical, you could say this song moves between 4/4 and 6/4, and occasionally it's in 5/4. But I think that's going to get a little too confusing for most people. So for the sake of simplicity, we are going to say this song is in 10/4 time and only occasionally in 9/4 time. But what does that mean? Well, it means that we're going to be counting to 10, and we're going to be using our kick drum as our metronome. So each beat of the kick is going to be one beat. And when we get to 10, we're going to go back to 1 and back at the beginning of our progression. But the Volca Sample's sequencer doesn't stop at 10. It goes all the way to 16, which is why we're going to go to active step. So hold down function and hit the play button. This brings up active step, and we're going to turn off steps 9 through 16. Now when we play our chord progression in full, these first 8 steps are going to be our 9 and 10 counts. So patterns 1 is going to be 4, pattern 2 is going to be 4, and pattern 3 is going to be 2. So 4, 4, and 2. Anyways, if this is still confusing, maybe a demonstration will help clear it up. But first, let's save this pattern. Hold down memory. We're going to save it onto 3. Let's also save it onto memory 6 and memory 9. So at this point, we should have patterns saved on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now let's go to memory 6. Let's load up memory 6. And we're going to change this pattern just a little bit so that we can play this full section of 1 through 6. So on this pattern, part 2 is going to have notes on steps 1, 3, 5, and 7. Step 1 is going to be C negative 12. Step 3 is going to be A flat negative 16. 5 is going to be G negative 17. And 7 is going to be C negative 24. So let's save this onto memory 6. And actually, we need to save it onto memory 12 as well. All right, so let's listen to our first chord progression, patterns 1 through 6 all together now. To do this, we'll use the pattern chaining feature of the Volca Sample 2. So you press and hold memory as you normally would to load up a pattern, except here you're going to press the first pattern you want to load together, and then while continue to hold, you select the last pattern that you would like to chain together. So now the display is showing us that patterns 1 through 6 are chained together. So when we hit play, we're going to hear each pattern play one after another. Now, as these patterns play, count to 10 with me so you can get a feel for this time signature. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, So hopefully you understand it a little bit better now. So most of this song is going to be in the 10 count. So patterns 1 through 6 are going to be one section. Patterns 7 through 12 are going to be one section. And then patterns 13 through 16 are going to be one section. So 1 through 6 is going to be a 10 count. 7 through 12 is going to be a 10 count. And here is where it gets a little bit funny, but we'll come back to that later. So let's continue on here. Let's load up pattern 7, go to memory, hit pattern 7. So the good thing in this section is that most of the chord progression is the same as patterns 1 through 6. So 7 through 12 is almost the same, but there's just one difference. And the difference is in this section is that there is an F major chord on the first beat of the chord progression. So we're only going to need to change the notes on step 1 for each of our chord parts on memory 7 and 10. So let's go to step 2. And on step 1, we're going to have an F negative 19. The rest is going to be the same. Go over to part 3. We have an F negative 7. Over to part 4, we have an A negative 3. Part 5, we're going to have a C 0. And then part 6 is going to be C 0 also. And let's listen. Great. So let's save that onto memory 7. And let's also save it onto memory 10. So now that section is done, all the other patterns are the same. So now we can chain these together and listen to this whole progression to make sure that we got it right here. So the progression here in this section goes F major, C major, D flat major 7, E flat 6. So just like before, we'll press and hold memory. We'll select pattern 7 while continuing to hold. We'll select pattern 12. Now the screen indicates that patterns 7 through 12 are chained together. Let's listen and let's count to 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Great. So now we're on to the last section, and the chord progression changes up a little bit here. And this is where we also have a meter change, but we'll get to that in a second. So it's all the same chords, but the order has changed. So instead of C major, D flat major 7, E flat 6, it's D flat major 7, C, E flat 6. So let's load up memory 13. And the pattern is still the same. We just need to change the notes. So going over to part 2, go to step mode. Steps 1, 7, 11 are going to be D flat negative 23. And step 15 is going to be C negative 24. Moving over to part 3. Steps 1, 7, and 11 are going to be D flat negative 11. And step 15 is going to be C negative 12. Moving over to part 4. Steps 1, 7, and 11 are going to be F negative 7. And step 15 is going to be E negative 8. On part 5, steps 1, 7, and 11 will be negative 4 A flat. And step 15 will be G negative 5. I'm trying real hard to remember how to do this with my hands here so I'm not covering the screen. I know several of y'all have asked that I try to do it with the other hand so that I'm not covering up the screen. So I'm working on it. I do remember sometimes to do it, but sometimes I don't. So please bear with me. Anyways, let's listen to this pattern. Cool. So let's save it onto memory 13. And let's also save it onto memory 14. And let's go over to part 2. And we'll have notes on steps 3, 7, 11, and 15. So take the note off step 1 and put 1 on step 3. Step 3 is going to be C negative 24. And steps 7, 11, and 15 will be E flat negative 21. Moving over to part 3. Same thing, turn off step 1, turn on step 3. Step 3 is going to be C negative 12. And steps 7, 11, and 15 will be E flat negative 9. Moving over to part 4, turn off 1, turn on 3. Step 3 is going to be E negative 8. And steps 7, 11, and 15 will be G negative 5. Moving over to part 5, same thing, turn off 1, turn on 3. And step 3 is going to be G negative 5. And steps 7, 11, and 15 will be B flat negative 2. And let's listen. Forgot to go over to part 6. Turn off 1, turn on 3. Let's do it again. Cool. So let's save it now onto memory 14. And let's also save it onto memory 15. Now, like our other chord progression sections, the first 2 patterns are each playing 4 beats of the chord progression. And then the last pattern is going to be playing 2. So patterns 13 and 14 are going to be playing 4 apiece. So 4 and 4. But this section is a little different in that it goes 4, 4, 1, then repeats back 4, 4, 1. Then it goes 4, 4, 2, 4, 4, 2 again, and then it transitions to the different section. But we're running out of memory spaces here to save all of that way. So we need to, all that we need to finish this progression is that E flat 6 chord, which plays at the end of the pattern. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to active step, and we're going to turn off steps 1 through 12. That's it. And we're going to save it onto 15, and we're going to save it onto 16. Okay, so here's where I might lose you all again, but hopefully I'm explaining this clear enough. So this is how it's going to work. We're going to chain patterns 13, 14, and 15 together. Let that chain play twice, counting by 9 instead of 10, because remember it's 4, 4, 1. So we're going to count by 9. And then when we get to the 1 count, after the second turnaround, we're going to chain 13, 14, 15, and 16 together, go back to the 10 counts, okay? So if that doesn't make sense, let me demonstrate it for you. So we're going to chain these together. We're going to chain 13 through 15 together. So now we see 13 through 15 together. So I'm going to hit play. I'm going to count by 9. And then I'm going to load up 13 through 16 and count by 10. All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right. Hopefully that makes sense for you. All right, so now all of our sequencing is done, and all that's left to do is just play the patterns in order. So to recap, because this song hardly has anything resembling a conventional song structure, we're going to refer to these groups of chord sequences as A, B, and C sections. So the A section is patterns 1 through 6. So when I say A section, that's what I mean, patterns 1 through 6. The B section with that F major chord is patterns 7 through 12. And the C section with that 9 count is going to be patterns 13 through 16. So listen to the recording to get the pattern down, but it's pretty much A, B, A, C, B, A, C, B. All right, well, that's Everything in Its Right Place by Radiohead on the Korg Volca Sample 2 using only the factory samples. Let me know in the comments what you thought. What did I miss? What samples would you have used instead? What other songs would you like to hear me cover on the Volca? And always, if you like this video, like this video. If you dig what I'm doing on this channel, please subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.